A little bit about me, I'm a leader, and I spend a lot of time investing in my teams, mentoring them, coaching them, creating space for them to try to do their best work. And then I kind of forget that, oh, wait a minute, who's gonna do that for me? That's me. And I need to model this kind of behavior to my teams. And so what we're gonna talk about today is becoming a better leader by learning how to lead yourself. And whether you're a leader or not in this room officially, whether you're a people manager or not, this is applicable across the board because leadership can come from anywhere by whomever steps in and fills that void. A lot of times leadership gets conflated into being the boss, being in charge, but leadership is actually something so much more than that. It really is about the care and feeding of the team, the nurturing of the team that you've been tasked with leading. We're responsible for the well-being of these humans in the workplace and making sure that their careers are developed and that they're in a position to do great work. And so today, let's think about leadership as taking care of people, as taking care of one another. The first way we can do this is to assess and approve our emotional quotient, our emotional intelligence, our ability to be self-aware, to recognize and understand the moods, emotions, desires, and things that we are projecting, how we're showing up, and how that impacts the people around us. Kind of like a situation of, hey, read the room, see what's happening, and then use that information to adapt your style for how you're leading a team, for how you're working with partners. Also, self-regulation. This is good. I usually just put this in there because I need to be reminded myself. I don't have much of a filter. I usually just generally say what I'm thinking. And so in a work context, that can tend to get in the way just a little bit. And so a lot of times, and this is very human of us, we hear something in a meeting, we see something presented, we're talking about work, and our gears are going. And we're looking, well, why'd they do that? What's that there? Why are they saying that? Hey, what's going there? Why are we changing this? And that can start to overtake our ability to be present in that meeting, be present in that conversation. So it's really key to develop the skill of capturing that feeling, that thought, even if you have to write it down, and then revisiting it as you gather more context, as you understand more of the conversation or the interaction that's happening. Empathy. You've probably heard this word before as designers. I find it very interesting that as design, we can often say we have to have empathy for our users, and then we complain about our shitty partners at work all the time. Wait a minute. Wouldn't empathy start there first before we claim to have it for people that we're trying to build for? So watch how people are reacting, see what's going on. A lot of times, as a leader, I'll be watching one of my designers present in a meeting, and I'm like, oh, maybe they should have done this, and my analytical brain's going, and I need to kind of put that on pause and say, wait a minute, they're presenting to an executive. I can see they're so nervous right now. And so I try to do simple things, like make sure that I'm using, if we're on Zoom, like emoji reactions when they're talking and things to give them that level of comfort that someone is in their corner during that time. So really learning that before any of us can claim to have empathy for whoever we're building things for, it has to start at home base. It has to start with our teams and our partners, or else we're kind of just full of ourselves, right? And social skills. And this does not mean, like, hey, go be super outgoing and good with people. This is learning how to manage relationships, learning how to build relationships, finding ways within your organizations to drive work when there's lots of ambiguity and challenges. As we start to build these skills ourselves, we start to be able to model these behaviors on a more regular basis. And in so doing, our teams can start to follow that lead. And they learn to build those skills and exercise them and practice them. One of the biggest things we can do as leaders and teach our teams is the ability to find common ground. Because there's gonna be, and I hope I don't disappoint anybody with this, there's gonna be a lot of times where shit just hits the fan and things don't go the way you want. Or a meeting goes completely off the rails, or a project gets shut down, or we're at a disagreement about where things are going. And we can, and are fully able to stand there and say, well, I am correct. And then the other person will most likely say, well, I am correct. And yeah, like right now, like nothing happens. So one of the most important things we can do is build the skill to find common ground, because getting something out the door is so much better than just being right. And I think that's something that as leaders we can teach our teams to do, is to find the way to make the relationships with our partners work by finding common ground. That means we might have to compromise. And we might have to say, that's how you want to do that? That's not really how I would do that, but how about we go with what you're doing, let's test, learn, and iterate. Because being right doesn't move metrics, right? Like, you're not making money for the company by having a strong opinion and not bending on it. So think about that way to find common ground and teach your teams to do the same. Your teams want to see their work in the world. And it would be a shame if that couldn't happen because we're modeling a behavior that puts them at odds with their partners. Here's another one that's, by the way, we're getting super emo today, gang. I'm just telling you right now. Lead with vulnerability and transparency. I want to be very careful with the term vulnerability because oftentimes it's a transactional way of being. I know that if I'm vulnerable with you, you're more willing to be open with me and we can have a better conversation, which is good, but we have to be careful not to use that as a currency. We have to be careful not to become transactional people by saying we're being vulnerable or, hey, I'm just being transparent with you. When we are not transparent, we erode trust, right? And one of the most important things we do in design is validate our assumptions. That being said, when we're not being transparent with our teams, our partners, and our leadership, we put them in a position to only be driven by assumptions. Like assumption-driven thinking can just destroy a project because that's not the type of assumption people really want to validate like we're doing research. It's actually just, well, they're not talking to me, so I don't know what's happening. So my brain starts working overtime, spinning up these really, really detailed narratives of all the bad things that are happening, when it's probably not even the case. And had I just been a little more transparent, we wouldn't be in that situation. Also show your team that they can talk to you. My team, I try to continually create a space for them to say, I know we're presenting to leadership next week and I'm scared shitless. Could we move it out a week? And I'm like, well, no, we can't move it out a week, but here, how can I help you? What are you worried about? What's truly nagging in the back of your mind when you think about this upcoming presentation or this thing we're working on or this meeting? Help them navigate through that. And I have to do that by modeling it to them. And this is a real challenge because it's a very fine line to be transparent with your team in a way that encourages them to do that back, and being transparent with your team and just making them super anxious because they're like, holy shit, our leader's freaked out. We're fucked. Like, what are we gonna do, right? So it's really important to make sure that when you are sharing fears and being open with them, it's in a way that encourages an open conversation and that can say like, yeah, you know what, I'm a little nervous about this project too, but hey, we both are having that anxiety, let's work through it, how do we get there? Communicating openly with candor helps build trust and collaboration. And this is the point where I say the same sidebar I say every time that someone uses the word candor, because the Radical Candor book likes to be on all the best top rating lists. And it's great. It's really good that we learn to talk openly, but like radical candor is not a license to be an asshole. So like if you're being open and direct, do it from a position of care with an idea of what you want to see happen by being direct with that person. It should never be an excuse just to say that really like pithy, good, sarcastic comment that just like digs somebody. I know, that could probably feel good in the moment, but that's where I have to self-regulate and realize that I'm being direct because I need this person to understand that I value their partnership or I value them as I lead them, and I'm being direct because it's in their best interest that I am. Another thing I think we can do is adapt our communication styles and leadership approaches, right? Like design is like the messiest stuff all the time. It's not super like, we do our research, we work on a design, it goes to the users, it wins an award, and everybody's happy. Like, that never happens. I don't care if you read Fast Company or not. That shit just doesn't happen that much, right? So like, we have to realize that this is a constant journey of adjustments. And if we want to be effective leaders that create space for our teams to be successful, then we have to adapt our communication styles and leadership approaches. I tend to be someone who will lead from behind and like let my team be out front, let them do the presentations. Yet at the company I work at, there's a very high expectation that every leader is leading from the front. And so I have to adapt at times and lead from the front, lead from the back, depending on the situation, the team we're working with, because perception can definitely impact the influence you have. And so if they think that I, as a leader, am just sitting on my heels, leaning back and letting my team do the work, chances are they're building this perception while we're trying to influence them. The other side of that as well is I have a way I like to communicate and lead and be, and with some people that works really well. With other people, it just falls super flat and it doesn't land with them. It's just like most of my jokes, like they're not funny, but to me they are, and I love it. So I say them and then people are like, okay. And so like, like it's that kind of thing. I have to learn to adapt my communication style in the same way we study people and learn how they use things so that we can better build things for them, regardless of what we think we know. One of the most important things we can do too is make an effort to recognize how we communicate and how it impacts other people. Everything about how we show up has an impact on the people around us. So if I'm communicating in a way that maybe feels like I'm dominating a conversation, or maybe being a little too direct, or like I'm talking over people, or I'm talking like they're talking to me, and I'm just working on my response to them instead of listening to them, like I have to realize that's having an impact on people and my ability to collaborate with them. It has an impact on how I lead my team. If I'm in meetings and I'm talking shit to executives or shutting people down or tuned out and not listening, my team sees that. And then pretty soon, if they see that enough, it is then proven to them that it's okay to be that way. And that's a direct result of my failed leadership. Also, if we want to influence, we have to find where people are and meet them there and communicate in a way they understand. Like, I know we hear it a lot in design, especially at events, but like, we really, really need to understand how our partners and what matters to the business and how they communicate, and then take our design stuff, get out of our heads, and just talk about it the way they talk about it. I don't care if you call it whatever their technical design term is for it. They don't give a shit about that either. They just want to know like what it's doing, what's the experience, and how's it going to add value. So find ways to translate those more technical design conversations into something that's more palatable for them. This one's hard, right? Like, I don't like to take time to honestly do anything. It just takes too long. I just like to go, 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 right? And a lot of times if we are not, or I'll just use myself, if I'm not aware of the different perspectives in the room, the contexts that are being brought into that meeting, I miss opportunities. If I'm not considering the different perspectives in the room, I'm missing the opportunity to get some of the wealth of information that comes from a diverse set of lenses. And that's really damaging, because then that can lead to just a singular way of thinking about things. I also need to remember context. Sometimes, and this happens to me, coming into a meeting to work on something, to review something, to discuss something, many people in that room have come from other meetings. And those meetings might have been good or bad. They're switching contexts. Give them time to reground, understand, pay attention to what's happening there, and then figure out how you might adjust to be able to communicate effectively with them. This is a bit of what I was saying before about taking note. I think there's this really interesting opportunity we have in design, or any practice for that matter, but my context is design, to understand that many of the skills we use in the design process are applicable to every other aspect of the work we do. Take note of communication style, learn to communicate on their terms, right? I'm basically kind of in that moment doing a little bit of ad hoc mental research. And then I'm being strategic about how I can be more effective with them. We have many of these skills, and we can bring these skills into our interpersonal dynamics with our teams. I think I said it in my workshop a couple days ago, but it's often found that teams who are managed poorly or micromanaged most of the time just underperform, right? It becomes a situation where they do just enough to like not get fired, right? That's not really the environment I want to create. I don't think that's the environment any of us want to be in. I don't want to be micromanaged. So thinking about leading our teams through autonomy and enablement. Model it, right? The number one thing we can do is model what we want our teams to do. Like, yeah, I mean, if you want to tell them, that's cool. Like, but like doing it's probably really a lot better. And so I need to model an autonomous working style. When there's ambiguity, uncertainty, unsurety about a direction of a project, maybe we're not sure where to go next or what's the next step, I just go figure it out and I do it. Or let me rephrase that. Most of the time, I go figure it out and I do it, right? Like I would like to think that I do that a lot of the time, and I'm probably at like 60-40. But we want to model that autonomous working style so that our teams see that it's okay to take initiative, it's okay to go do things. One of the things I constantly tell my team is that I don't want you to come ask me to do your job. Like, I hired you. That's all the fucking permission you need. Like, go do the work and then come back and tell me what you learned. Don't sit in a decision and say, well, in a meeting, I can't make this decision because Aaron's not here for me to ask him if it's okay to make this decision. Just make the damn decision. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, we'll change it. We'll iterate. We'll test and learn. Again, testing, learning, these are all things we do in a design process. There also can be how we interact and lead. I don't even have to say it, right? Okay, I do. Get out of the fucking way, right? Like, come on. Like, our teams, when you start to lead people, one of the two biggest revelations I had in my career, as soon as I became a people manager, I thought I wasn't a designer anymore because I wasn't pushing pixels. And a good friend of mine said, no, you're still a designer, dude. Like, your deliverable is just different now. And I was like, I had like the cloud split, rays came in. It was the most amazing point in my career. I felt so comfortable in my skin. The other thing that I think we miss at times is that there's a really good chance that someone who reports to you or you're leading is gonna do it different than you would do it. And as long as you're progressing towards the outcome you both want, that's really okay. They may not do it the same way you do it. They may think of it a different way, because guess what? They're not you. And the more we try to make our teams work the way we work, we limit them from being their whole selves in that moment. And that's not really helpful to them. So yeah, get out of the fucking way. Again, do a little research. Build an understanding of your team's experiences and skills and challenges. That way you can enable them. Working in an enterprise, in a company like Capital One, we see a fair amount of change. And there's been a few occasions where we were interviewing someone and we hired them to work on a project, and because the interview process was long and it took a while, by the time they joined the team, that project wasn't even active anymore. So they ended up working on something that wasn't even aligned. They were an interaction designer who was doing research 100% of the time. And they were like doing their best. Like they were really trying to research. But it wasn't going that great. So I was like, no, we have to move that. I'm pulling you off that project. Let's find this other project that plays to your skills where you're gonna feel like you're bringing your best work to this team. Change that dynamic of the team right away. We have to understand and pay attention to our people, to watch them, to understand them. What are the challenges that we can help them grow through? What are the challenges that maybe they kind of put in their own way? And how do we coach them through that? We need to enable them by understanding them and meeting them where they are, and using that information to coach and mentor them in the ways that will help them be the most effective. You can design how you work, and I highly suggest you do that, and create a working model that your teams can use as a North Star and to hold one another accountable. This is also kind of going what I was saying about, please don't ask my permission to do your job. If the team knows what we're trying to achieve, how we're trying to do that, and what success looks like, then they really shouldn't have to ask me for too much. That should create a space for them to be able to make decisions on their own. They know what the North Star is, they know what we're trying to do, and they can hold one another accountable. These types of things also wake their way into decision-making in meetings. Well, yeah, I understand you want to do that, but remember, this is what we're trying to do. And the whole team has a shared understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. And that may change over time. It may have to change over time because the nature of the work and the business will change. But it's really important that they have something to true back to, because chances are you're not always going to be there. I'm not. I spend 80% of my week on Zoom, right, in meetings. And my team are also in other meetings, so I can't be in those meetings to tell them what to do. I certainly don't want to. So they need to have that structure in place for them to feel comfortable to make decisions on their own, to drive work on their own, and to help each other be accountable to that. Also check in and be like, hey, like, am I doing a good job as your boss? Like, I'm not asking if you like me, I just wanna know, like, do you feel supported? Like, do you feel like you have what you need to do your work? Is the way we're working as a team good? Is our partner relationships, how we're engaging them, is that helpful? No, okay, let's adjust, let's adapt. Give them a sense of ownership and feedback into how you work as a team, and they will take ownership of that and run with it, which is what we want. We want to build the next set of design leaders. We want to build the next set of people who are going to have an impact on design and the businesses, and as Dan was saying, like making this place more humane, right? We have to help them understand. We have to understand them to be able to support them in doing that. So ask and be ready to be okay with them saying like, yeah, you know what, man, you feel kind of checked out lately. Like I don't feel like I'm getting the support from you I usually do. And that probably sucks to hear, but it needs to be heard so that we can adapt and support them. I think it's also really important to establish personal norms. Like, we can't really take care of the people that we have to care for if we don't care for ourselves. So, like, we've got to manage our time. I purposely will not attend certain meetings because I know my team really needs me for something else. Or if I haven't had a chance to connect with a team member during the week and they really need some insight from me, I will just not go to the next meeting and give them time. Because chances are, that meeting's gonna be boring anyways. We're reading a deck that we probably already created. And like, we're not building fucking rockets, man. This is like banking, right? Like nothing bad's gonna happen if I ditch that meeting, right? So I have to find ways to manage my time, not just so I can be there when they need me, but so that I'm not overstressed, I'm not burnt out, I'm not exhausted, because when I'm all those things, I am unable to be my best for them. And if I can't be my best for me, I can't be my best for them. Man, that shit's so hard. Like, when do I have time to do this? I'm leading a team of 30 people. I have 4 work streams going. I'm managing partner relationships. I'm managing up to my boss, to other executives. Like, maybe I'll read a Medium post once a month. Like, it's just not, it's not that. It's just really challenging. But prioritize it. This is something I've invested in myself this year doing, is taking classes. And don't worry, I'm not gonna post my certificates on LinkedIn or anything, but like, I'm taking classes because I need to develop myself. If I am not modeling what it's like to have a learning mindset and growing, my team will not do that either. How many people are hungover right now? I'm kidding, you don't have to raise your hand, you all are. No, but really, like, there's a level to that that's true. Like, I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life, but what I can tell you is the more I've invested in maybe taking better care of myself than I would in the past, I feel better. My emotions are better regulated. My mind is clearer. I can be more present in a way that my team needs me, as opposed to just like giving them what scraps of my like energy are left. And if you're looking at me right now, yes, I actually do run out of energy a lot. And so like, it's hard to lead a team when I don't have the energy to do that. One more I'll say that I took out of the deck, but I think I'm gonna put it back in, is I used to say, get a therapist. I don't care if you get a therapist or not. The idea behind that is, find a group of people or someone you can talk to that is not your team, not one of your loved ones or a significant other, that will just hold you accountable. And when you're telling them, I hate work and this sucks and this partner's driving me nuts, and they're like, well, you kind of also did that shitty thing to them, so like, that's on you. And you're like, oh, shoot, thank you for that. So it's really important. One of the things I've found helpful is I have a group of people, I think I'm at like 3 or 4 right now, that I know at any point in time. I don't talk on the phone, so I just text them. And I'm like, hey, let's chat. Let's grab a beer, let's grab coffee, let's grab lunch. I just need to chat. It's almost like setting up your own personal board of advisors, right? And these are people you trust, who care about you enough that they will tell you the things you really need to hear, whether it's comfortable or not. And I think that's very important. We need that accountability. Also, do like a regular vibe check. Like, how we show up really does have a massive impact, right? Like, if my vibe is constantly just pissed, like, my team is just gonna be pissed all the time. Or they're not gonna want to engage with me because they're like, oh, dude, he's in one of those moods again. Like, what is happening that he's just so angry all the time, right? Like, how we show up, and that comes back to self-regulation. Because there's a lot of times where I don't feel like showing up good. I feel like mailing it in. I'm tired. Or just, I have other things going on in my life or my family that shit's just the forefront of my mind. And I have to have a space for that and own it and recognize it. But then I also need to know that there's a time and a place for me to show up for my team. And so a lot of times, if we're having like a stand-up or a kickoff, I'm like, I started doing this in a more approachable way. I was like, all right, for stand-up, we're gonna put emojis into Slack. That's just, how's your vibe today? And then each person can go around and mention it, right? Like what theirs was. And mine, I always just try to find the most random one. Or if emojis aren't as fun, I'm a big fan of animated GIFs, so like that's just like super fun. And like, it's an easy and like approachable way to just say like, are you doing okay today? Without them feeling on the spot in a group meeting to have to tell you too much. So I have to be mindful of my vibe that I give off. Because sometimes also my vibe is like it is right now, extremely high strung, and that can actually create anxiety for my team if I don't learn to slow myself down. So our vibe is really key in setting the tone. We want to set that space for the team to go do their work. This one's also just for me. I got great feedback from my boss earlier this year. I was pissed about some projects. I was so frustrated. And she was like, bro, the whole team just thinks you're taking all this shit too personal. It's like, gosh dang it. All right, yeah, you're right, and there's a moment to be frustrated. There's a moment, like I said, being transparent, being vulnerable, being ourselves. At the same time though, how I deal with these situations is modeling how my team should deal with those situations. It's not easy, but it's really, really important to understand that how I handle a frustrating situation is teaching them how they can, or it's letting them know that an unhealthy behavior is okay. And that's not helping my team grow. That's regression. This one too. Sorry, if you talk shit on your partners, you suck, right? That's the worst thing you can do. You have to deliver things. Relationships make the world go, right? So if we're being not good partners, or we're coming back after meetings and be like, can you believe so-and-so in engineering or product did this, and we're like talking smack on them, this isn't high school, this isn't Gossip Girl. Like, what are we doing? Like, we need to be thinking about the fact that like, you know what, hey, that was a tough meeting, that partner's challenging, but you know what, next time let's try this with them. And then when your team leaves, then just write in your book, yeah, like, F that dude, right? Like, keep it to yourself. Like, it's okay to have feelings, but how we engage as we have those feelings is equally as important. How we talk about our partners, how we talk about the work. Are we overly critical? Are we too people-pleasing? Because that's also, it's not just about being bad. We can also just let our partners walk all over us too. And what does that tell our team? It tells them we don't have their back. It tells them that we're gonna roll over anytime someone challenges us. And it's not like we have to fight everything, but we need to be able to have conversations with candor. Kind, but direct. So let's not do our best to not like talk about our partners terribly in front of our teams. I'm on that commitment with you. Here's the thing. Leadership is a mess. It is a messy, messy, messy job. You're responsible for human beings. And we're in this weird position where like, you want to like help them and build camaraderie with them, but they're also just like not your family. And then, no one really wants to hear like, come work with us. It's like a family here. No, don't do that. Because if that's your idea of a family, I have no idea where you get that. That is the perfect picture of dysfunction. But here's what I will tell you. Leadership is hard. You're going to fail. People are going to quit on you. People are going to work their asses off for you. They're going to ask for your help. They're going to come back after they've left your company and say, hey, that time we did that and you coached me through that, that has changed the course of my career. And that's the kind of shit that'll keep you smiling for weeks at a time, right? Like someone coming to your workshop and saying, That was my favorite workshop. Like that kind of stuff, those little kind of things matter. Encouragement matters. Saying kind words matters, right? Let's be those kind of leaders. And I know it's hard. And so my commitment to all of you in this room, even as I fly back to New Jersey in a couple days, is I've got you. But then like, look around. We should have each other in this. We should be sharing our leadership stories. We should be helping each other become leaders, grow as leaders, developing each other. That's what a design community is supposed to be for. And you've got this, right? We got this. Yeah, like this is fine, everything's fine. We're good, right? In all seriousness though, I do believe in you. So please go out there, find ways to lead even if you're not a leader, and think about how you show up in those moments to be a leader for your team. Thanks.